mean,
Sunday
Well,
was,
bend them over and
Monday was very bad.
was it,
That was the day the nerve blockers wore off, and he was
did
really
they give him
just in
OxyContin or something like that?
oxycodone, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I took one,
Yeah.
and it made me feel so crappy that I didn't take another
Well,
one.
he seems to be
And I
okay.
managed to survive on Tylenol.
Yeah.
I couldn't knock the snow off
Stronger stuff.
Well,
because it was,
I mean,
the
my
trees are too
surgeon
big.
said
I mean, these are 40 or 50-foot
we
trees.
would not normally
40
do
foot trees.
two at the same time. for
But the
something.
whole woods now is different. There's light coming
And
through it, so
so,
maybe something new will start growing.
I said, well, you know, this is what
Doctor?
I'm doing in terms of working out and so on.
Right.
He said, well, in view of that, you know, we'll do it. And so,
Oh, shit.
you know, but he said, you have to understand that I can only do actually one at a time. And if there's a problem with the first one, then you're going to have to come back.
Right. Well, he doesn't need the second one done right now.
Has he started taking a shower yet?
Yes.
How is he doing that with his,
We have a bench in the shower, so you walk in with
yeah,
this.
but I mean, keeping all this dry?
He's got this, it's basically a giant waterproof bandage.
Okay.
And that's over the incision in his
We've
wrist.
given to several
Yeah,
people
I'm
what we
probably
use,
not gonna do
which is like a
anything,
roll of cling film,
Okay.
and you just wrap it around her leg,
She just told us to use
and then
some.
throw it away afterwards.
I went over to the moorings to check out the gym.
Hey, Ed. Welcome.
Wow, I can't read that from here. I must be,
It's really small.
that's okay.
My minutes.
How was your trip?
Yeah, we got to get,
Really good
because Barry's
musical
zooming in.
This is
Oh,
Barry.
he is zooming in?
Bingo.
This is Barry.
I didn't know it was even on.
No, this is not
So when I
Barry.
was talking to Carol today,
This is, yeah.
Yeah, that's
telling me
Barry.
how good
Okay.
Andrew's
So do we
boys
have-
are,
It's not started
and
yet? Okay,
promised
so
to let
you
me
can
know
start
next time.
that.
Yeah.
So this is gonna start
And it was
recording.
just a fun, I
Okay.
just felt like, oh my God.
Everybody clean up their act.
Music that is suitable for the older generation.
Oh, they love that. Actually, they really love the music. They
Recording in progress.
vibe.
That's great.
Yeah, it's fun. It was really fun, honestly. Felt relaxed. I was like, oh, this feels great. But I need to come down. I want to see your show.
He's not in yet,
Well,
Cliff.
it's on till almost the end of March, so you've got plenty of time.
I know, but that happened, so.
I know, you say you're gonna do something and then,
Yeah, and then it
Stuff
happens
gets in the
during
way.
work hours.
Yeah.
You know,
Duncan comes up here.
but that's on my list. 'Cause I heard it's very good, and I saw the write-up.
we were on WRDE and WBOC.
They're good at that. I love that they do
I never had WBOC approach us before. We have a relationship with
Yeah.
Paige Marley at WRDE, but and then suddenly after that appeared on the, whatever day it was, WBOC.
that away.
Yeah.
And she does it fast.
Yeah,
But she does a great job.
yeah,
And she can take anything and kind of,
yeah.
even things that are good. Who knows how she's going to do that?
The
It's a
slash,
brooch. It wasn't, yeah, isn't it cool?
is it enamel?
It's nice, yeah,
Back is cool.
yeah.
But
They
they just,
translate on Instagram as much. I was like, I can see it tonight.
it was, the earrings, they're like high heels. Like good brooch.
Yeah, that would. The combination, yes.
We're early.
By the old clock on the wall. You can tell by the old clock on the wall that we still have 3 minutes before.
I mean, they would actually set it ahead every day at the dealership. I mean, he'd like, you know, they had this one wall they look at.
They wanted to get out early, you mean?
Oh, man, car business. Nighttime, you gotta be there, but nobody ever shows up. It's the most boring last 2 hours. We ended up closing on Friday nights because everybody would go out, have cocktails, get drunk, buy a car, and then cancel it Saturday morning. So we said being open Fridays was not a good idea either, so it was tough. Tough for those guys. Johnny Elliott passed us all that. One of the old boys. All right. Come on, Mary.
In Florida?
He is in Florida. Everybody in the community is gone, seems.
Oh, he's down on virtually?
Yeah, he's coming in virtually. I spoke with him today, he's planning on being here. But then,
Trouble getting connected. Sometimes when he's down there, he has trouble getting connected for some reason.
yeah, I'll text him. Could be cocktail hour, you know, it's just two for one night.
An hour on the beach, probably.
That was yesterday, yeah. So, 2.
That was yesterday, wow.
All right, great. I'm logging on right now. What a tight ship we run here. I think we can do some of this. Let's call the meeting to order, all right? I would call the meeting to order at 7:30 or 6:30, and it is, first order of business is to see if we can approve the minutes from last time. Anybody read them? Any corrections?
Yep.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Great. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Welcome, Barry. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Good, we can hear you. We just approved the minutes. Did you have anything you'd wanted to complain about from the minutes?
No, I have nothing to complain about.
Okay, good. All right, update on projects for 2022. The only update I can pass forward is that the city could not get us permission to do the library location that we had in mind.
Well,
And we didn't,
Del Dot came back with additional questions, and it probably wasn't going to get resolved in your time frame. So.
correct. But the net result is we didn't get permission. So we're going to go to Plan B, which we talked about at the last meeting,
So Vivian's are going where effervescence was.
correct?
Okay.
And she's on target with that. And you talked to her, do you talk to her this week at all, or you just wrote
I
her?
talked to her this week, and I need to send her an email and then confirm that placement with her, and then this updated contract with that.
When we send that, do you have a bunch of photos of effervescence? Because I like to get wide shots and small shots, and with the 3 individual objects, it will be cool to spread them over, we can spread it out pretty wide. I mean, not too wide, but she's got to know that she's got a lot of options, and that she will meet with the park commissioner at that moment and decide about the final.
On the day of install.
Do we have any photographs of what we're talking about so that the audience knows?
No. I mean, I have the same ones that we posted some online. I don't have anything to show.
Okay.
I have some.
Well, I have these small ones. So the Vivian project, really, we're just talking about placement, so, 'cause all those things have been decided. The next thing is, The report on Rosa.
Oh, Rose DeCiano?
DeCiano.
Okay, so last time, we had a couple of locations that we were considering. One for the obelisks in particular was a discussion that I was having with the president of the HOA at Chip Carpenter Square. And I actually had a really great conversation with her, and I thought, I was very optimistic when I talked to her, but then she spoke with her board, and they shot it down unequivocally without really any explanation. So that's fine. So it's not going Chip Carpenter Square. And then Janet, I had mentioned, I thought, well, maybe in front of the Old Library Lewis History Museum, but you both said that that could potentially be a traffic safety hazard. So I guess our backup location now is definitely Smith Park. So I guess almost everything's going in Smith Park this summer. But we're talking about the spheres being close to the pollinator garden, and what about the obelisks also?
I
in
think
that?
what we'll do is, these are 4 pieces that are related. There's really 2 pairs of 2 different pieces, and we'd always plan on the spheres going up there near the entrance on Park Avenue. You'll see one as you drive down Park Avenue, and Barry and we had pictures of the location. The 2 obelisks, we're going to go in that general area, that quadrant of the park, but that has not been decided, but that's where they're going to go.
Okay, good.
Cliff, can I just, we're going to be doing, I don't know how long these are going to be there for, but the city is doing a tree planting there in September. So when there is discussion of placement, please reach out to me so that Marty and I can meet with whoever, well, you're the captain for that project. Because it's a grant-funded tree planting, and we can't stray from what we told them we were going to be doing,
I
so.
think we can,
We can do
I
that.
mean, these are 2 objects that are 3 feet square, so I don't think we're going to be, and we have plenty of flexibility, so sure, that would be involved, and Crescent will be there too, for when we put those in. And I'm assuming he's going to know where the tree planting's going too, right?
Who's going to be there?
Ed,
Oh, Ed, yeah,
for the commissioner of the park.
yes. Ed and Harry are co-commissioners, so.
Right.
Okay, so just to follow up with that, I'm in contact with the artist. We're going to have either a phone call or a Zoom call next week, Carol and I, and possibly Trina, because a lot of the images are coming from her, and I think Rose's questions are about the images that were sent to her in the Dropbox.
And that's
But
gonna be
everything's,
next week?
Yeah,
Because,
That's Wednesday.
okay, and
Yeah.
you already set this up, you guys are all talking with
Yeah, we're
with
just
Rose.
trying- yeah,
And
we're
She's
trying
chosen
to.
her photographs now.
she's choosing her, I don't think she's made her ultimate final decision, but she's close to it. And-
Okay.
And I also sent her the video from, a couple weeks ago, the SDR-ARJ did a Black History Month presentation, and it had a lot about Lewis Black history, so I sent her that, because that was, her questions were,
That background of
yeah,
Black history.
yeah, so I gave her, it hopefully would give her some backstory. So that's where we are with her.
I
and
really
she-
liked it, hearing that.
Oh, good.
Oh, she,
She responded.
oh, I haven't checked my email today.
No,
Great,
because she heard Trina's,
great, because that's
narrative.
the one I told her to listen to. It was great. One more thing, what was the one more thing? Was that, oh, okay, and then we're working on a delivery and installation date, so we'll get some possible dates and get everybody rounded up for that.
Okay,
here we are.
we will need some coordinating on those dates, so as soon
Yep.
as you get them, shoot that to everybody else, because
Okay.
we're going to be coordinating the other installs, and we want to make sure we're not too overlapped.
Okay.
That's great, that's good progress, and I'll be really interested, for you that don't understand, this one is a,
Here, I can show them.
there are obelisks that involve a appropriation of Lewis history onto a panels, or in some cases, these pieces that look like Dutch
Tiles?
They look like
Tiles.
Delft tiles, yeah.
and they're going to be done with elements of Black history in Lewis. The third one, Barry, you want to do it, or you want me to do it? You're the captain, but
Well, you can do it since you've been doing
their
most of the
captain
work.
is on vacation. My captain. I have the Letha Wilson piece, which is the Corten steel and photographic imagery, which we were going to try to do by the library, is now going to go to the Canal Front Park location that we had previously discussed. We have to get it in and get it out under the
Whereabouts in the
same
Canal Front Park
conditions.
is that, Cliff?
It's going to go next to the, down where the, very close to where the Unbounded was.
Okay.
But it's going to be very close to the sidewalk, sort of in that corner where there's a couple of benches. And it's going to go in,
Grass?
it will go in the grass. I have spoken with both Friends of Canal Front Park and Rodney Robinson, and both of them really love the piece. And I'm happy to announce that Friends of Canal Front Park are going to pay for the slab for us.
Oh, good.
Which is sweet.
So Cliff, can you tell me again where that is? Because there's irrigation there.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
We're going to miss the irrigation. I've been down there with the irrigation people.
Okay, so
it's-
what corner is it?
It's near the open space where the benches are, sort of across from.
From the
If you looked at Unbounded, you could look at it from essentially from the playground, which is looking towards the canal, or you could look at from the overfalls, which is looking back down the canal, and we're going to be on the other side, close to that sidewalk, not too far away, but in there. And
Closest to the canal or closer to the playground?
closer to the canal, more closer to that corner. And that's where, we don't think it makes sense to put it in the location because of that drain field on the other side. So we're going to go out and mark I've been there, we're going to mark the the irrigation, and it's 82 inches by 42 inches. And then,
Slab is?
yeah, it'll be like a 3-inch slab, and we'll put it down and we'll pick it up at the end of the summer. And we have to put in some sod afterwards. So I'm in touch with her, and that will come down, and to get that one in place, we'll come straight down that road from from the,
Where the chain is that comes across the little road there.
exactly. And so it'll be pretty easy. And that's where that one's going to go. So the place, we'll be coordinating with the park, and of course, we've got to, when you get back, Barry and me will set up, and we can get that thing poured real early, as soon as the weather breaks, and give her a call. She's bringing it herself, and maybe her husband, and we're, like before we discussed, we're providing a support crew through Handy Andy that's going to help assemble it.
We love Handy Andy. He's so helpful.
Okay, so that's the update on 2022 installations. We still do not have in place the educational programming that we wanted to do for 2022.
I called the school board or the administration, and all I can do was leave a message. I just said I'd like to, I was from this committee, and we were interested in a project and would like to talk to somebody from the art department.
I can call Fruckman. I can call the
Okay.
teacher,
That would be great.
or find a way to get to it, and see if they want, I mean, what are we trying to do? Go have them come see it, talk about it? The
Or
students?
if they know somebody, if they can do it, or they have a
Oh,
contact.
you mean having them do the educational part? Or having us invite the high school to come and visit it and talk about it?
No, I thought we were looking for somebody
Oh,
to
there.
be like a docent for this stuff, right?
What we're looking for, there were two elements of this. We're thinking about doing like a first Friday or something like that, which we could tie in with gallery nights in town or anybody. But that was sort of a general idea. I mean, I don't know, when do you have your openings? Do you have your openings?
Saturdays.
On Saturdays? Is it any particular Saturday? Is it like always the first Saturday?
Usually the first Saturday in the month.
Well, do you think it would make sense to try and coordinate something bigger with that? Because we're trying to have one night or one day that we can put on a calendar. That if you want to go to one of these art places and have a talk about it.
I have no objection to that, but,
Do you think,
you know, I mean, they're pretty far apart. We're usually working from 5 until 6:30.
I mean, if there's anything to be gained by creating some kind of symbiosis, it'd be terrific. If there's not, we won't have to worry about it. I'm not,
There's
I think.
so many of these art loop, Wilmington has it, Kennett Square has it. There's plenty of these places that have either First Friday or I think they are usually monthly, and they're not always tied to an opening per se. Sometimes they're just, people going out. It's sort of a reason. If the gallery's open, then people are going out having dinner. Really, it's good for commerce in the area, and it's great for the galleries, and it's kind of a fun event, and people are looking for things like that. So,
I think it makes a difference if there are a lot of galleries.
yeah, but we have.
Right, but I think, but Tony, I mean, realistically, if you're having an opening, people are going to come out in this town to your gallery, and they're going to be thinking about art that night.
Sure.
I mean, we're sucking off of your energy, and it's not going to,
As I said, I have no objection if you want to
I mean, it
piggyback.
kind of, yeah. All right, and so does that seem like a pretty good idea? So we just have to come up with how we're going to present our work.
Right.
And I think each captain ought to be pretty ready to give a talk about their own work, the work that they are installing. Captain,
Got it.
Captain Barry.
Aye, aye.
Yes.
A question in the
The worst
chat.
case scenario is that it's going to fall on us. Go ahead.
Let's see if there's a question.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
Trina's
from
just.
Trina.
Trina's
Good.
just confirming
Yes.
she's happy to
coming in.
participate.
Oh,
No, I was just highlighting the chat, but it's, I think it's been covered.
Yeah, that's Trina, and I think.
Oh, great,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Trina just chipped in that she would be happy to participate
Because
on those nights.
we're already talking about tying in the Rose DeCiano pieces to Juneteenth, which
Yeah,
would
so
be fabulous.
if you shoot me those dates,
I can do that.
and then I can put that, and we can actually get that on a calendar.
It makes sense for us to be the docents, since we've worked with the artists, we know the work.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's only 3 nights this summer that we're asking you to do it for an hour or so. All right, good.
Is there an install date yet for the Letha Wilson?
Is there a what?
An install date?
No.
Okay, because there is something else going on in the park in that section, so we can talk about that.
It will probably be during a weekday and probably in an afternoon.
Okay, but there's a 6-week period where there's something going on there.
Yeah,
From-
are you referring to the dock replacement?
No, I wish I was. There's the Overfalls and the library are doing a story walk, much like they do in Stango Park. So they will have stations for the children to go and literally read a story, and the story is about lightships.
Okay,
So
good.
that's going on from mid-April to the end of May.
Okay.
And we just mapped it out yesterday, so,
Good. Well,
so that'll be,
we can talk about
but
that.
yeah, we need to communicate on that.
All right. Okay, any other questions on the installs for this summer and the program? That's good. There was a discussion, yes?
Just to be clear,
Sorry, do you mind just coming up and, you know the drill?
Ed Zigmansky, 616 Kings Highway. Just to be clear, I wanted the Vivian Collins tree-like steel pieces is going in George H.P. Smith Park?
Yep.
Okay. And the Letha Wilson photo sculpture is going in the Canal Front Park? And Rose de Ciano is also George H.P. Smith? Is that
Right.
correct? Just wanted to get that correct. Thank you.
All right. The next question, is this DeWitt Godfrey piece. We spoke about that in the last couple of meetings. This is the one with the great big pieces of steel that, roll around and they roll down the hill and everything like. If we, I thought we all really liked that, and what we're talking about is just doing one thing for 2023. And he kind of needs to know, it's very vague at this point, but he needs to know if we're definitely interested so he can decide if he really wants to respond to it. This would be like a much bigger expenditure. We would only be able to afford to do one thing for the summer. And because of its volume, there's technical questions that come in. I was talking to our curator today in New York, and she says, you got to remember, this stuff's going to come in a big truck and on flatbeds and have to be unloaded, and so you may not be able to do it just in any old place. And so she was thinking that the Canal Front Park is not a good place for it because of the truck's too big, and this thing really needs to go on the grass to get it out there. So I'm kind of circling back, because I think we've had this discussion that everybody thought that piece was a pretty good idea, right? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and push forward with that, and
We just have no idea where we can put it.
well, what he does, he designs it for an individual space. So some of those places are rolling down hills, some of them were between buildings. The number of places that we have available for our little program are pretty limited. And then the scale, because he basically has these pieces and he assembles the pieces. He doesn't bring them all, depending on what he's thinking what he's going to do. And it would take several trips for him to come down and set it up. But the first thing we have to do is say, yes, we really want to do this. And then we can scout out.
Do we have any idea how much it is likely to cost?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. We can control the budget. We can say all we can spend is X amount of dollars. I think that the last time we spoke about it, we thought it was going to cost us about $10,000. That was 2 years ago, and he's become more popular.
And more expensive, therefore.
Theoretically, possibly.
Do we have a space that could do
Well,
it
you could-
justice?
Yeah, actually, I think that, I kind of want to, I'm focusing on 22 right now, but I would say that we go forward and we are, we look around for spaces that would, would speak to that might be able to join it. You have to look at the body of work, because he has pieces that are in flat fields, and he has pieces stuck between buildings, stacked with holes going like this, and some really cool pieces go between trees. And he's pretty So, and he would be flexible based on what we find for him. So I think the more creativity where we could suggest spots that might be appropriate.
I think, excuse me, I think we ought to find the spot and make sure it's possible for us to do something. I think we can encourage him, but I just can't imagine giving him the go-ahead when we're not sure.
Oh, no, it wouldn't work that way, Denise. It would be
Okay.
like, we said we really want to work with you, which means he's going to invest some time because we're going to invest some time. It's not a contractual obligation either way. But what we would probably want to do is say, because he'd want to know well in advance. So
Yeah.
if we get a subcommittee, a captain for 2023, then they're going to go out and, and scout locations that might make sense, and, you throw those ideas back and forth. And I think then when Karen comes down for the openings of some of these pieces, we are,
Walk around.
yeah, we'll show that, and maybe we FaceTime him get him on the line, and we FaceTime with him, and maybe he wants to come down. But,
What Denise is saying is true, that we do have to kind of know a little bit ahead, because we're running into issues with
Yeah, I was gonna-
spatial.
Was Del Dot's issue, like, for example, we still explored areas along the trail, like
So their concerns and issues and wanting additional information had to do with a number of things. The safety of people using the multi-use path, bicyclists, baby strollers, runners, whatever. And wanting more detail about how the concrete pad was going to be installed. Was it going to be poured there, pre-poured? How was the work site going to be secured? Where were vehicles going to be parked? Was this meant to have people gather around and look? If so, the pad in the area had to be ADA compliant.
was this boilerplate, or was this specific, their
This
questions
is
were specific
specific
to this
just
one?
to this art piece. So they had a lot of additional information that they wanted, and they're going to be temporarily moving the bike path for the railroad cars that come in.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying about this particular space, I'm just saying if we explored the trails, for example, what roadblocks we might get into with
I think you're always
outside
going to have
agencies.
the same thing from them. They want very specific information.
is that we try to get a dialogue with them that's a little more open and less site-specific, so we can see if this is a viable thing, because obviously, if you, there are many levels at the state when it comes to getting approvals, and
And I
I think
understand that, but I
so
mean,
we're
from the
gonna-
city's perspective, there are so many projects that we work on with Del Dot that it really has to be through, the same
Coordinate.
avenue of conversation. So, but I would suggest that because of the difficulty with a couple of these projects, that, speaking to what Denise said, that we do find a location so that we're not scrambling as we did with these projects.
okay. So that was, so anyway, it's a long road, that's a long road for now. The other thing is we have a report about Amanda Brower from Denise.
I've been in touch with the Seaways Quilt Guild, with their president, and I showed her the link to Amanda Brower's work, and there was interest, and she's bumped it around to her board and chosen a point person, Carol Fisher, who lives locally, and would be very interested in working with us and brainstorming possible ideas. Do we want a banner? Do we want a flag? Do we want it vertical? Do we want it horizontal? Is it going to be indoors? Is it going to be outdoors? That kind of thing. But there is interest, and I'm really pleased that we have a point person at this point.
So we are getting a sit-down with her. Have you picked a date for that yet?
No, because I was waiting to hear from
Okay.
you.
So we're going to get a sit-down, and of course, Nancy has worked with these people before, and I think that maybe those direct answers are actually evolve out of a much grander
Okay.
discussion. And
So let's try and get a date
So
for,
how about next week? What date is she free? Get us,
she's free most mornings.
Okay, Amanda's doing a project in Erie right now. I don't know, she's on site and working with the group there, but I'm happy to reach out to, are you talking about?
I'm thinking about you have a meeting with
God,
Carol.
Okay.
Local.
I mean, yeah, just
Okay.
to sit down and
Sure.
give them a general idea of what's involved, because
Okay.
they don't know.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, well, I can work with Karen, and Cliff, would you be part of this too?
I can be, but I don't need to be.
Okay, all
And you
right.
gotta be careful how many people are meeting
Yeah.
Yeah.
just because of FOIA.
Well, so it's, I mean, these two, and
Yeah,
then, yeah.
exactly, so
Okay.
I doubt, yeah.
Yeah, it would be us and this point person. Okay, I'll work with you. We'll get a date.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Denise. You got her done, didn't you? Took a while,
Wasn't everything? I mean,
evidently. All right.
I do think one question that's likely to come up is the cost. Are we going to bear the cost of materials, or, a lot of that depends on what we're talking about, but anyway.
So we'll have that discussion, that'll all come up in that discussion.
Okay.
And what kind of personnel do you need to create this kind of thing? Will you need to engage their group, or maybe high school students, or,
I think at this point, they were talking about their group. There was interest in their group. 2 people have already volunteered to work on it.
So-
This came from my conversation with her. So I think this is something they'd want to take on. Now, we could certainly possibly involve high school students.
I think
Down
that,
the line.
I think that at a certain point, the artistic director for this, which would be Amanda, she'll have an idea of how she wants to involve people. And I know she wants to involve the whole community, not just,
I was going to say, I thought the idea was you get the community to donate material,
that is the idea.
and then you also get the community working under her to sew it together.
That is correct. That's
Right.
true. Right.
So cool.
And it's a great project.
Yeah.
And
public art?
there you go. All right. So Amanda Brower, under new business,
The water tower.
under new business, we have, we've had a discussion about this art on a fence last meeting, and we didn't take that too far forward. I think it got, 2 meetings ago, we discussed it, and it got extremely complicated, and we saw it all backed away. And I just want to know if we want to continue that discussion, or just let it rest, or at
I think
this
the whole
point.
point of that was it for not to get complicated, so if it got complicated, it probably doesn't do the thing that it was supposed to do.
So we'll put that aside for now, maybe we can come back to it, but definitely not, so we're sort of done with that one for this year, okay? Is that what I'm hearing?
We have a lot on our plate for this year.
We do.
I think so.
It's a fun project, but I just don't think we have time to shoehorn it in right
Especially now
this
that we're all
year.
going to become docents.
Yep, that's right.
Good project for DAC.
All right, okay, so, other business is, E1 is discussion of appropriate format for an AIB proposal discussion. So, the reason that I put this on the menu is that as we have been working for a while, and as we look at our job to sort of, a run point for the city as it's evaluating art projects. We wanted to make sure that we were very open about what we see as our role, and if anybody was coming forward with a proposal, and this is a general discussion about the kind of questions we would hope to be able to ask and receive responses on from someone that's going to propose something. This has nothing to do so much with a particular proposal, because this is sort of going to apply for everyone. But I wanted to try and start making a list so that there weren't any surprises. And what we are interested in, to make sure that the city has a good, viable program going forward, and looks at things are understood to be of a value to community and fits in the community. And so it's kind of like just a sort of a general discussion of what kind of questions that we would want to ask if someone says, which someone might say, that they want to put a piece of permanent sculpture, permanent being a big deal, in one of our parks. So, Barry?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think the reason we're having this discussion is, or that we're proposing this discussion, because I think that we're thinking that the process may be a little more rigorous when we decide to do a permanent sculpture. And I know at the last Recreation and Parks Commission meeting that we had, it was mentioned, and there was the question, how do we, as a Recreation and Parks Commission, feel about placing permanent sculptures in parks, and how will we address that or deal with that? So I think kind of that's really the difference. What we've been doing up until this point have been doing temporary sculptures, and now we understand that we're going to be presented with more and more permanent type requests. In fact, we got a request at the Recreation and Parks Commission to do a veterans type memorial or sculpture, and there was quite a bit of a discussion about that. So I just wanted to kind of preface this discussion by that, so that people understand that we're talking about more addressing the issues around a permanent sculpture, which I think is really kind of a different discussion.
Okay. Anybody have anything they want to throw out there?
Well, the only thing I would say is that if PRC got an application, then theoretically it's going about the process in the wrong way, because it should come to you first, or us first, and then go to PRC, is what everybody's been saying.
I think that is the policy.
Right.
That's the way the city wrote the policy. It comes to us first. All right.
What we do is try and find.
Well, I mean, we're sort of, we're trying to do the due diligence, and we're trying to ask all the important questions so the city council doesn't have to spend, it spends more time than makes sense to me in meetings already, and we're trying to create a situation where we do the work for the city, and we're doing the due diligence, and the city doesn't really want to, the council doesn't want to spend their time arguing between, does this look better in blue or red or something like that. And so what I'm trying to say is, what are the questions that we really want to be able to have answered if somebody's coming forward, so that their project is put in to, the format that we consider appropriate for public art. And if you remember that the speech that public art is a very tricky thing, and the woman with effervescence, she said, this is a shared public space. It's owned by everybody. And, how you treat it, how you treat the commitments that were made to it earlier, and how you treat it to the commitments in the future, it's all part of the program. So we spoke about, at the meeting not too long ago, about placemaking. So if you're going to put a piece of art somewhere, it's not about the sculpture. I mean, 20%. It's about how it fits in, how you encounter it, how you see it, what's its context with everything else around it. So I want to make sure that we're understanding that we're not really here to talk about a particular culture. We're talking about the appropriateness of it and how it will, function within.
Well, I think one of the questions that we all have to ask is if we're doing we're looking at a park, does that park need a sculpture, or is there a space that's appropriate for it, or are there other more appropriate places for that sculpture that will show it off better, or where it will relate to the environment better, or it will be viewed or seen better? How does the mass and the scale of the piece relate to the intricacies of the park and the activity in the park? I mean, I think those are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves. Because
that's a lot.
When we permanently locate something, it's there. They take statues down in the South that are, racist and stuff, but, they were up there for 100 years. So we need to be thinking about, if we put a permanent sculpture in a space in the city, it's probably going to be there for a long time. It's not like our temporary sculptures that are here for 2 or 3 months.
But just getting back to the questions that we would want to ask. I mean, you just asked, the first one was, does the park need a sculpture? I think it's a legitimate question, and that's a question that we would want to ask. I think what follows from that is, a park is designed by an architect, and they've got an idea of how it works visually and physically. Mm-hmm. And so, and that is you spend a lot of money to have a design, and you have a certain rigor that goes along with how you decided to do that. You have parks that are, city parks that are, full of, rough edges. You have slough natural parks. This park has a lot of grasses and a lot of planting. It's very soft, and so that's part of the texture of the park. And so,
Also, it has a backdrop behind the park that is pretty lively, like the canal, and so there's things that we have to interact with even beyond the park's edges.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, does it interact? I mean, how? In what sense you're talking about? How would it interact with what?
Well, if it was a plain field, it has a different than having what is going on beyond it. I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on beyond our park.
That speaks to, does the park need the sculpture?
Yeah. But also visually, what's happening.
Well, I think about
how does it change your experience in the park? Does it change your experience in the park, whether it's, be it a wedding, be it organized play, an event, or just casual play?
I mean, if you played, let's say you played, you have a soccer field, and you put a big piece of sculpture in the middle of the soccer field, it's going to affect how you use the park. That's a stupid example, but it's obvious. I do kind of feel that, the park design is really important. I mean, as a person, architecture is I mean, this is a piece of architecture when you look at a park. It's like the pieces may not be, windows and doors and bricks, but it's an architecture, which means there's a whole to it, and there's a whole balance. So I think that it would be fair to ask how
How
this
is it
fits
integrated?
with the architecture and the design of the park. Okay.
How does it integrate with the design? Yeah, I think that's a good question too. How does it integrate with the
But
design?
all these questions, I think we should be asking ourselves for temporary art as well, because for 3 months or 4 months of the year, the effects are the same.
Well, we
Yeah, but they're
can
not
talk about
permanent.
that later, but
The
let's stay on
difference, Tony,
point with this. Let's stay on point with this at this point. I mean, that's an interesting observation, but let's stay.
But I do think we talk about those things, where we're going to put it, what's happening, but it's not as big of a deal because we are.
But when you're talking about permanent, you're talking about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. How are you taking care of it? How's it being maintained?
That's another good question.
Can you just let us keep working on this, and we'll come back to you. I promise. How will we keep it maintained? I'm really slow at writing.
I mean, most of what we've been discussing is in the policy document anyway.
Well, I just want to make sure that, I think
What do
one
you
thing
say?
that has come up is when you have something that you're introducing into a space, are sight lines. And, the analysis of if you have a natural focused view and you want to put something in that, does that help the sight line or not help the sight line? I mean, this is, I think, important.
Well, you can ask 10 people that, and they'd all have different answers.
Yeah, but I think if you ask,
You can say, does it change the sight line?
right, does it change it? Do we want to change it? Yeah, you're asking, do you want to change the
It does.
park? Do you not like the
I mean,
park
you
the way it
could-
is? Do you want to change it? Do you not like that sight line? Do you need to change it? I'm looking at defending the open space. I'm looking at defending what we have now against a possible improvement.
Well, and there is rigor in our process, which is good.
Well, there's rigor in the design, in that, there's a balance and there's mass, and like you have, I mean, this park in particular has this big object of mass in one end of it, and it's called the overfalls. So, man, that's an anchor. And you can't process that park without feeling that. And then, does it sort of comes in and flows out and sort of goes up, and it's got, beautiful lines in it. And so is anything going to distract from those lines? If it distracts from those lines, it's changing the function of the design of the park. You make a design so it will function in a certain way.
Composition of the visual thing.
So does it change the composition?
Except parks are living things, too, and they're going to change over time.
That's
You
true.
have trees that grow, right?
They sure do.
I think you also
I'm
should
sorry.
be asking whether,
Trees that
whatever
fall
it is
down,
and
too.
wherever it is it going to improve or increase the visitation to the park? Is it going to have an economic impact on the city?
Those are good points.
But all of these things, I mean, I think that all of these things are huge in terms of the need. And in the situation that we're thinking about, our conversation is more about the park than the piece. Because, there's, and I think how the piece affects us and the park is going to be a major, major, major part of the discussion. And I'm not certain.
Well, I mean, if we talk about a specific park, Canal Front Park is the busiest park and has the most going on and the most everything, as opposed to the other parks that we have. I mean, the other parks are certainly have activity in them. I mean, you know, Smith Park has a lot more open space and a lot more, you know, opportunities for different permanent as well as temporary sculptures. But
No, I
you know,
mean, I get that. But
that's one
Barry,
of the things.
I mean, right now, though, we're rather than the specifics, we're just trying to gather questions. Does anybody else have any more questions you think we should be asking or bringing up to be discussed? Andrew?
I'm gonna hold my fire for another time.
All right.
It's just,
All right. Anybody else? Okay, Warren, you're on.
Thank you, Cliff. As one of the.
So the subject is questions that we should be asking.
I just want to make a statement. As a founder of Art in Bloom, which led to the formation of this committee, our purpose was to put permanent art in the parks. And that, because we wanted to do that, this committee was formed. And you can look at the history of that, and that's what you will find. That was our goal. I just wanted to say that.
Well, I think that, I mean, can I ask you, Warren, while you're still there? Because we really do kind of like, I mean, does this make sense, what we're talking about? Like,
I think it's fine to ask questions, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There was a process. I mean, I think the point score was one of the things that was created.
Yeah, we've gotten,
Yeah,
creativity, and we used that when, we used that scale when we did the mural project. And I mean, I think that down the road, when you're talking about an individual piece, that's when you get to, you know, creativity. I mean, the materials, maybe that's part of like how it fits with the park, but I mean, there's creativity and you know, how professional and all that stuff, and what's the message, what's the theme, how appropriate, all that. That's all, I mean, that's all, but I think that comes after that you decide it makes sense for this rather than before. I mean, I wouldn't want to just look at an object and say, oh, yes or no. We do not want to have one of these, you know, a binary discussion. Is it yes or no? We want to try and say what's best and learn about what's best. And we brought up a bunch of different questions that come from all over the place. And if you think they're great, that makes me very happy because, you know, we can all help address them. And I do think it's more important. I mean, to think about it in those terms.
yeah.
I think we need to ask these questions for the community because that's kind of who we're serving.
Yeah.
And to me, these are the kind of questions that people in the community would want to have answers for.
Right.
Well, I think you'll hear from the community if we propose a piece.
Okay. Yeah,
Pro and
good.
con, I'm sure.
Sure.
And I think that's part of the process.
I think that's what we're trying, and that's all we're trying to do right now is say, we want to avoid someone coming up and saying, well, you're asking us all these crazy questions, and we just want to talk about our sculpture. And we just want to make sure everybody understands that we're in a place-making, creative mode here, and this is all really important stuff to us.
I understand.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Again, Ed Zygmonski, I'm co-chair of Art in Bloom. So just a point of reference, Art in Bloom, I think this month or maybe March, is now going to be 6 years old. And one of the ideas that we had early on was to form a public art committee. And so through our initiative, we asked council to do that. And council, along with members of Art and Bloom at the time, took a year and a half to come up with the policy on selection, placement, installation, and maintenance of public art on city-owned land. I see you kind of wandering and slightly stumbling as to what question should be asked. And I think those were all asked in a year and a half's discussion by city council, and they put together this 16-page document. If you look at this 16-page document, and I read it a number of times, nowhere does it say anything about permanent or temporary art. It says, the very first sentence, this policy applies to the placement of art on city-owned land, period. So nowhere is there a discussion about temporary or permanent art. However, you do have a form in which you are to follow whatever art is going to be placed on city-owned land. It's right here. So that's number one. If you start asking questions now, why don't you just look at this and read this and see what you have to do? Because I was chairman of the Public Art Committee before there was a Public Art Committee to review the wind spinners that we wound up placing near the library. And what that committee did, as I was chair, is we went through this document piece by piece, line by line, and followed it to, we finally had agreement as to whether that art was in the right, appropriate place, whether it was the right height, whether it was the right color, whatever it was, it's here. So if you follow this document, and as we come to you in the coming months to propose a certain sculpture, we're more than willing to go along with this, as opposed to just saying, well, should we have permanent art, should we have temporary art? That's nowhere in here. So I want you to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions? Okay. I think that brings us, any other public comments? No? Okay.
Are there no hands up on the public?
All right, and let's go home to dinner. Can I get a vote to adjourn? Thank you, I'll compile this list.
Move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Nice to see you, Barry.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Barry. Go back to your Mai Tais or whatever you're drinking down there. Appreciate it.
I think I'll go for a swim.
Go for a swim.
All right.
I was gonna go to game that weekend, but
That hurts.
Friday. Like,
That was.